Hey everybody, it's me, Teri Hunter. It's the last show of 2020, the last Sunday of 2020. Oh my goodness. I don't know if to be excited or not. We made it through. We made it through 2020. And we have a full moon in Cancer on the 29th / the 30th, depending upon where you are in the world. So I kind of wanted to talk about this full moon because it struck me that, good morning, Juan. It's great to see you. I hope you had a lovely holiday, a good Christmas if you celebrate Christmas. I wish everybody a happy Kwanzaa, happy Hanukkah. I know that's all over. But I wanted to talk a bit about this full moon in Cancer. The moon rules the sign of Cancer. And I could go to the idea of home and hearth and motherhood and nurturing, but I really felt like I wanted to go to this place of my intuition, of trusting and inner knowing. I was thinking about the idea that, I feel tired and old. I was thinking about the idea that the Cancer Capricorn axis, what does that really represent? But the Cancer is home. It's what's inside of us. It's what in some ways is not seen with the eyes, our intuitions, our feelings. And then Capricorn is very visible. It's what's out in the world. It rules authority, government, organizations, outside influences in some ways. So here we are with Jupiter and Saturn entering Aquarius this last week, ushering in a new age of air, because those two planets are going to continue to meet in air signs. So this is where I'm going with this whole idea. The full moon is the culmination of something, the ending of something that gives life to something new. And it's on this axis about what we feel on the inside versus what is given to us from the outside. And what if the precedence becomes trusting that intuitive inner knowledge versus what is being told to me? There were things, when I was a young girl, I was raised inside the church, the Christian church, and I was taught that God was loving and unconditional and, the most warm and fuzzy energy. And then there came this sort of time when God suddenly turned and started to be judgy and have a right and a wrong. At least this is what I'm being taught. I'm not advocating any sort of religion. My point is it became counterintuitive to me. And I trusted the idea that God was unconditionally loving, that God in some ways understood our foibles, our flaws as humans. So my point is this: we're entering the age of Aquarius as represented by Jupiter and Saturn going into Aquarius, giving us this opportunity to individualize our way of thinking and then bring that back into the collective so that we allow that to be the new normal. So here is the ending, the culmination of not trusting your instincts, not trusting your heart, not trusting your bigger yearnings. I really don't think that as humans that we come to this planet with all these dreams. There are the people out there that go to karaoke that have these amazing voices. Whitney Houston, pardon my age and my references, but some of these classic singers have nothing on these people that are doing just karaoke, but their limited belief keeps them in that little place rather than moving forward into a bigger arena. So this is where I'm going with this. I think that people are going to start entering into bigger arenas of what is intuitively coming from their heart chakra. And in doing so, creating dynamics where we are personally more happy, even happy with those challenges that come from that. And that's going to set this new dynamic in this new era. So here we are in 2020 with the final moon of the year. We know full moons usher in 2 weeks of energy. We've had eclipses in this month. So I think there's a lot of opportunity presented to us, if we can look past the disruption that must be experienced in order to be liberated. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm going with this. I'm excited about this idea of this new moon. I don't know if I feel like the energies of 2020 are going to be over because the clock turns from 2020 to 2021. But I do think that on some level, the jarring disruption that we felt will become the manure that fertilizes, that nurtures our own personal soil. And that's another thing. The fourth house, Cancer, represents the soil we were raised on. So I'm kind of going here with this. Celebrating the idea that what was the influences on the outside are only as valuable as they resonate to me on the inside. And that as I honor those dynamics, as I honor that truth within me, the Aquarian age, Uranus is going to make some aspects, and I'll talk about this more in the weeks to come. But guys, Uranus is going to be squaring Jupiter in the middle of January, squaring Saturn in the middle of February, and it'll square Saturn 3 times throughout 2021. So we're still in this restructuring, this liberating of old boxes to create bigger. I wish I knew more, I want to say rectangles, but I still don't want to box myself in. So that's kind of where I'm going with the idea that all of this is going to make sense to us. And I want to offer this too, because as a tribe, as a group of light workers coming here on Sunday, coming to Lotta's channel, studying astrology, thinking and seeking bigger answers out in the world, you shine a light. And if you think about it, when the light comes into the dark, it is very powerful. And yet the dark has a hard time extinguishing the light. If you put dark in a light place, it doesn't usually eclipse it. So start to think of it that way. All right, so now let's get on to our readings for this week as we enter this new moon, full moon energy in Cancer. And again, I want to kind of give the idea that the culmination of one thing offers the beginning of another thing, and the beginning of one thing usually ushers in the ending of something else. These don't have to be dramatic. To me, they feel very much based in emotions, in intuitions, into concepts that we have only had about ourselves, and now we're more willing to see if we can actually implement them into this experience. Okay, so here we go. Pisces on our way to Aries, as is the norm on this channel. Okay, I want to welcome everybody as a collective. I hope everybody had a wonderful holiday. I watched a lot of classic movies. I watched Casablanca, which I had not, I don't know if I've ever seen it in its true entirety, but I sat and actually watched it and quite enjoyed it. I watched My Fair Lady, one of my favorites, and The Sound of Music, which got me into song. So apparently I'm feeling a bit of nostalgia, which would be so reminiscent of this full moon in Cancer, because it reminds me of my childhood. They used to have a show called The Wonderful World of Disney, and it used to play on Sunday nights. So this is where all this kind of plays back to. All right, let's start with our Pisces rising, stelliums. I say stelliums, and I just don't know why that came out first, but when you have 3 and especially 4 or more planets in one house or sign, and since we're going by whole sign, if you have it in one sign, it's going to be very powerful to your life path, very influential into who and what you are, regardless of whether your ascendant is there, your moon is there, or your sun is there. So let's say you have Venus, Mercury, Jupiter, and Uranus in Aquarius. Wow, that's super, super powerful. So be mindful of that when you're listening to these. And I want to offer this. If you listen to the multiple signs and you're thinking, how do they work? look for a common thread within each of them. So it could be that if you're listening to, say, your rising and your moon, the common thread is self-love, or the common thread is a broader perspective. So look for those kind of things, because I really think that one of the things I was talking about 2020, not necessarily ending because the clock has turned, but 2020 is a 4 energy. 2021 is a 5 energy. 5 energy in some ways is very independent. It has a shadow side of, divorce, separation, but I think it could be divorcing ourselves from old concepts that didn't make sense and ushering in new, untried, relatively new experiences potentially, but a willingness to endeavor a version of ourselves that has only been dreamt of before. That's the way I want to say it. And thank you, everybody, for saying so many nice things about my appearance. I'm feeling extremely my age lately. But yes, and thank you for my tree. I'm loving my tree. I might have more challenges taking down my decorations than I did getting them up. And if you guys see Lucky running around in his cone, I know we had it on last week. He has taken into having this little tantrum, and he won't eat his breakfast. He wants to go straight to the TREATSs. And then if he doesn't get what he wants, he bites at his paw. There's no sore there, but it's sort of me not having to worry about him for an hour and a half while we do the show. So that's why that goes. Okay. Oh, Uncle Dan, welcome back. So good to see you. Yes, so far so good with the apartment thing. We had the inspections. I'm taking a cue from all the other tenants that aren't worrying too much and trusting the universe and the big picture of things. So, yes, I'm a Libra sun. So let's get with it. Here we go at 11:13. Pisces, rising, moon, sun, and stelliums. Good morning, Tebow. Good to see you. CJD, Becky, Astro Ascension, Ivy, Kate, MJ, Jules, Sarah, Z. I hate it when I miss somebody. All right, here we go. Pisces. Our first angel is Seraphina. Our second is Layla. The third is Yvonne. And the final is Francesca. As I'm shuffling, I want to say this for Pisces and for all the signs coming up. The different rising signs are going to put the Cancer, Capricorn axis in different houses. I want to offer it this way because as we look at what do we believe, look at what house it is. Of course, the moon rules the natural 4th house, but it may be your 7th house. And so what is it about what you think about partnership, the Cancer in the 7th house versus your individuality? Capricorn in the 1st house. So kind of go there. Take it layer it just a wee bit, because I think the house placement is important for what the full moon is culminating. Don't know why I'm saying that. It's just the way it's coming through. Pisces, Seraphina is being joined by the communications card. Layla is being joined by the trust card. Yvonne is being joined by the fear card. And Francesca is being joined by the love card. Okay, Seraphina talks about having a happy change to our family. And or an addition. And if you look at the face of the card, pardon my fingernails, guys, we're in quarantine. There's a baby on the card. And here we are talking about the full moon in Cancer. And I want to offer it this way because I don't think this is really much about, it could be about your physical family, but I think very much it's about how you are communicating. And this, again, trusting your instincts, trusting an inner knowing. When I look at Seraphina, there's this sort of interesting, what feels like this, like two eyes almost watching over. It's like an angel watching over the angels. It's almost like, I feel like there are communications that we have that are even bigger than we realize. And I feel like for Pisces, that's ruled by Neptune, I want to almost allow for a little bit, Neptune rules imagination. It rules film and cinema and storytelling in some ways, the fanciful dynamic. I feel like allowing yourself to communicate with spirit in a more dreamlike way, in a way that is not like what you think you can ask for or what you think is possible, versus being a little more unabashed. And I do think that communication is with spirit, Pisces, because Layla is asking you to speak to spirit, to go out into nature and to talk to God and the angels about what it is you want. And here's the trust card. So, and the trust is a 47. I don't know if you can see that. To me, that reduces down to an 11. So we're talking about ascension numbers here. We're talking about focusing in on our thoughts, the master number of 11. So here we are at the end of 2020, embarking in a new age. And that age is sort of the age of Aquarius, the idea of Jupiter and Saturn moving into air signs for the next 200 years, ushering in a new dynamic. If you've been studying spirituality for a while, you know that they've been talking about the Great Awakening for quite a while, about the ascension, about energies breaking away old fear-based structures to allow for a greater individuality, which actually brings greater collective energy. So my point is this: for Pisces, I feel like up until now, you may have been talking to spirit about what you think is acceptable. And I feel like there's been a hole in it. Let's say you've been talking to them about your finances, okay? And you've been saying, oh, please help me with my finances, but you haven't been addressing your love body. Or you've been addressing your love body, but you haven't been addressing your personal power body. Because when I look in the angel's advice for Pisces, I think this is about being vulnerable to what you think you fear. I want to say it this way. When I talk to God and the angels about things, I rarely talk about a love life. It doesn't even really occur to me. And there could be a variety of reasons. Obviously, for the first part, I don't have one. And second of all, I believe that there is the potential that my soul has taken vows of celibacy and service. And so I have not given life to the idea that service comes through partnership. So I feel like for Pisces, I know this is getting a little belabored, it's about looking deeper into what makes you happy, starting to communicate more deeply through your own soul. It's almost like, or your through your soul versus your ego, so that spirit can get to the deepest parts, because in the final position is love. And Francesca asking you, what do you visualize right now? Because negativity will block your progress. And I don't think it's necessarily negativity as much as it's, when I think of the spiritual dynamic of Pisces, the spiritual dynamic of Neptune, the 12th house, which is what is behind the self. It can be considered a house that's, we talk about imprisonment, we talk about hospitalization. There's a bit of the self that has been muted. So now I think this is about stoking that. And I think this is about really communicating with yourself and with spirit, the deeper yearnings of what you want to experience, and not to think of it as a selfish thing, but as a way of individualizing and then coming back into the collective with this reconciliation, this understanding of why the challenge has made the fruit sweeter. That's what I'm saying. So to me, this is really kind of a very pivotal energy that ushers in this new year, this new era, AIR-A. Okay, let's go on to our Aquariuses. Thank you, Becky. I like the tree too. I didn't even use a bunch of my ornaments. I just decided to, you can't really tell, but I decided to just use gold and green and silver and light colors, and it looks super pretty with the lights on. It looks a little sparse with them off, but it's cool today. So, all right, let's go on to our Aquariuses. LOL. Why did I say LOL? I was reading and speaking at the same time. Okay, here we go. I've heard so many sirens in the last 3 days. I can't even begin to tell you. All right. Thanks, Mieko, I think I'm saying that right. All right, here we go. Aquarius, rising, moon, sun, and stelliums. And I'm going to say this. If you have an stellium in Aquarius, it is like a time for you to rock and roll, baby. A stellium in Aquarius, as we enter the age of Aquarius and we're going into this Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Aquarius, I would put on the gas of thinking that Saturn is going to rewrite the structures of my beliefs, and my beliefs are completely aligned to what it is. Remember, the 11th house also represents our hopes, our dreams, and our desires. That gets kind of doesn't get mentioned as much. It's also a house of wealth. And the 11th house is an Upachaya house, which as it matures becomes more viable, becomes a house of benefit. So it can be a little challenging in the beginning. All right, here we go. Aquarius. Our first angel is Aurora. The second is Caressa. The third is Mystique. And the final is Akasha. Joining Aurora is the owl. Joining Caressa is the spider. Joining Mystique is the communications card. And joining Akasha is the Lady of the Lake. Okay, so Aurora talks about flying high right now, which may threaten others, but it will soon inspire them. And it's interesting because I don't think of this as a physical threat. I think of it as breaking the box of thought. So here we have the owl. The owl represents in this deck wisdom and deception. One coin, two sides. And I say that because within deception, there is wisdom to be found. And within wisdom, there can potentially be deception if it becomes too, I want to say, dogmatic. I believe for Aquarius, Aurora is playing to the Uranian aspect of what you represent, this shocking liberation, this awakening. If there's one planet that represents awakening, it is Uranus. So there's where we're breaking the box. And I think, and I'm going to go to the final position and then go back around, because Akasha is the spiritual teacher, also representing an awakening to your spiritual gifts. I believe that this full moon in Cancer is truly designed for us to step into this deeper intuitive knowing of who we are at a soul's level, which is breaking up the imbalance of what Capricorn has to represent. That's the access. There's something about this access of material versus intuitive. And we don't want to exterminate one for the other, but in some ways to integrate them. And when I say integration, this is how we break the box, because we turn the box from structures that we followed in a Capricornian Saturnian way, stoically, without discernment. Because here in the opportunity of the obstacle is Caressa. You're at the end of a life cycle. And that is what I believe this last week of 2020 is. It's what I believe this year of disruption has been, to break the box. We would not do it voluntarily, because the ego will tell you, oh, I'll give you, a highway to run down of your dreams. But are you really able to? Will you thrive? Will you survive? This is a question we ask ourselves often. And when we default to what is safe. And that's what I think has been broken up. So many of us, if we really look at it, did not like driving to jobs 40 hours a week or more. And now we're able to work from home, and maybe some of us are even able to work in a more integrated way, some out of the home and some in the home. I believe that this new structure is going to stick. I believe that the spider is representing the end of a cycle, but a new cycle that is starting that serves us at a greater level, because Mystique is saying to keep charging ahead. This is in the angel's advice. And then there's the communications card. And in this respect, I don't think that this is about communications. I think this is about mercurial things. Keep charging ahead in what you want to do with your everyday lives. Mercury represents 2 signs in our zodiac wheel, and both of them represent in some ways our everyday lives. Gemini represents the 3rd house, our teammates, our workmates, our roadways, the way we think, we speak, we talk. This is very much our everyday lives. Virgo represents our work, our health, our physical being. So I think that for Aquarius, you're flying high right now as you discern between what works for you and what doesn't work for you. As you surrender to the idea that Uranus may shock you, but you're kind of happy about it because you're ready to move out of this chapter and into a chapter that serves you in a way that is much more aligned to what you want to experience. And so you keep charging ahead. And instead of looking at how you're talking to God and the angels, you're looking at, what do I want to experience in the physical world in my everyday life? And in doing so, you awaken that opportunity to others. And it takes courage, because look at the Lady of the Lake. She's in what I would call very much this full moon in Cancer's energy. This water is disruptive in some ways. She's holding Excalibur, the sword of truth. It literally drips with the water of her own intuition, and yet she's willing to stand in courage, in self-respect and responsibility for her feelings. So I want to offer it this way. The Akasha, the teacher, in this instance for Aquarius, is not necessarily looking outside yourself to try to change the world, but allowing for the great awakening within yourself, that then as you walk your path through this world, you allow others the invitation of their own awakening. I really believe this is where we're headed, where we are I believe that the earth realm and the experiences we have here, we as souls choose the contrast. We know that there is a dark element here, or what appears to be dark, but in spirit's form, we know that as we shine our light in that darkness, we are much more powerful than the darkness itself. As I started off in this broadcast saying, the darkness cannot squelch the light. You could try doing your own personal experiments of putting dark into light. The light will always win. All right, let's go on to our Capricorns. As I just randomly think about it, I kind of look at astrology 1 week at a time, and I'm starting to look a month ahead of time as I've learned more about it. And I didn't realize how powerful, when I started going backwards from Pisces to Aries, I didn't realize how powerful the signs of Aquarius and Capricorn would be, because you've been major players, especially Capricorn. And now, so I really want to kind of capitalize on that, because Saturn rules Capricorn, and now Saturn has gone into our revolutionary sign of Aquarius. So let's see. All right, here we go. Seagull SG, that's awesome. That's spirit guiding you to listening, and also letting you know that you have a synchronicity that you can take into other arenas of your life. Ivy, I think I'm a Libra with an Aries ascendant, and my Aries feels so strong. So I listen to my ascendant. I personally do not have a strong stellium, but if I had a strong stellium, and that's 4 planets in one sign or house, I would listen to that, because that to me indicates a very strong mission in that energy. Then I would go to my moon, and then I would go to my sun last, because I truly believe that the moon, representing our emotions are reflected by our beliefs, and that's how we truly take our actions. Okay, here we go. Capricorn, rising, moon, sun, and stelliums, and I say it that way just out of habit. All right, our first angel is Sonia. The second is Astera. The third is Layla. And the final is Rosetta. Ivy, you should definitely listen to Aquarius. And whatever your 11th house is. Oh, I'm assuming your 11th house is Sagittarius. Okay, sorry. Technically, a strict stellium is 4 planets in one house. But if you've got 3, pay attention. Okay. Emily, if your South Node is in Sagittarius, it's also a strong indication of what you're very much used to from past lives. So you're used to Sagittarian energy. Okay, Capricorn, joining Sonia is the Wealth card. Joining Astera is the Letting Go card. Joining Layla is the Raven. Ooh, getting chills everywhere. And joining Rosetta is the Grail Knight. I was watching... I think it was YouTube or whatever. I followed this. I think it's called Black Jaguar, White Tiger, or White Tiger, Black Jaguar. I don't know. I can't ever get it right. But I follow this guy who rescues big cats in Mexico. And he puts up all these videos. And there were baby goats jumping up and down on this cow that was just sitting on the ground. And it was really funny because 3 or 4 would jump on the cow. And as soon as it got near the head, the cow would sort of like, okay, you got to go. And they were so joyous. And this is what I want to talk about to my goats. Most of the time we talk about Capricorn in its most challenging vibration. It's strict and it's stoic and it follows the rules and all of that. I think this is being transformed because I think that as we follow the interior rules, what is authentic to us, we become more like baby goats, joyous and jumping around. Because in this foundational position for this full moon is Sonia, which represents a message from my deceased loved one saying, I'm fine, I'm well in heaven. But as a collective, I think this represents my team and my tribe from the other side, the team that watches over me, the team that knows that when I'm a Capricorn in my stoic energy, I'm a bit in the illusion of the earth. But when I'm in my Capricorn baby goat energy, connected to spirit and looking to spirit as the true structure, the true foundation of where I come from, there's my harmonious wealth card. And I go there, and I'll come back into the other positions, but I want to go to the final position because there is Rosetta. Rosetta representing having a way of parenting and teaching and guiding children. And there's the Grail Knight. Again, Lancelot, and we see Excalibur bowing to the sort of truth. I believe that Saturn, the new rules, the representing authority in government, has an opportunity to find wealth because there's a new order being implemented. And that new order is to understand that there is much more that we can't see with our human eyes. And I believe that for Capricorn, as you reach for the stars with your dreams and your desires, and you're less in that vibration of what you can, it's kind of like, I feel as if we're going from Saturn in a Capricorn into Saturn in Aquarius. It's a very different energy. So as you, as a Capricorn rising, moon, sun, and especially stelliums, give life to the idea of the evolution between those two energies. It's like you're taking this and you're creating a new platform. There are new rules, and those rules are much more aligned to our hopes, our dreams, and our desires. They're much more aligned to our individuality, which then allows us to come back and make that the norm for the collective. That's where I think this is going. So as you connect to that bigger picture, Capricorn, you find harmonious wealth. That is the platform you have with this full moon. And now this is about, you guys who watch me all the time know that the Letting Go card represents that song from Frozen, Let It Go. It's funny how some distance makes everything look small, and the fears that once controlled me can't get to me at all. And here it is. This is reaching for the stars. Astera. It's time for me to see what I can do to test the limits, to break through. No right, no wrong, no rules for me. I'm free. And here's the angel's advice. Continue to commune with us. Focus in on where it is you want to go and what you want to experience, because magic is in the air. It's a timing issue. We don't realize how often our soul, our oversoul, has an image of what we are going to experience that the universe or the 3D world has not caught up with. I tell you guys, and for those of you that are new watching, when I was in my 20s and in my 30s, there was no internet. You know, people had to write books. People had to be published authors in order to be recognized. And as I aged and as the technology came, evolved with me, my opportunities opened up. So this is where I'm going with this. There are opportunities. This is a timing issue. The timing is right. And now allowing yourself to be more like a baby goat, honoring the truth of who and what you are on the inside, and then allowing yourself to rewrite the box. It's okay to have a box. It just doesn't have to be a teeny box. It could be a huge box with a lot of little rooms inside of it and lots of doors and windows. So that's where I'm going with this, Capricorn. Allowing this idea of because I was talking earlier about the full moon being in Cancer, but on the Cancer Capricorn axis. So as you allow the ending of what you think is expected of you, what you think others will approve of, which will ultimately make you happy, because for a minute you have their approval, that shifts into the Cancerian energy of what is true to my heart. And will that truth of my heart, will those things, as I implement them and I work with my diligent and enduring energies to make that a reality, that's where I think the gold is. That's where I think the true transformation is, and where the truth of your heart is implemented on this planet. All right, let's go on to our Sagittariuses. Welcome, Nikki. Hi, Timothy. Good to see you. Keegan, welcome. No, I think I just put the Raven in the deck. The Raven is about magical timing. And oftentimes you see the Raven sitting on that skull. I believe that is really, in many ways, more than just representing the death of something, but the death of an old way of thinking that didn't serve us. And all winged creatures represent sight that pulls us above. And then we looked at the various winged creatures and what do they mean? And the raven and the crow both mean a transformation. In many ways, a full moon. It's the same thing, the ending of one thing and the opening up of something else. All right, here we go. Sagittarius, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. And I want to say this too. If you have a Sagittarius stellium, you are very used to being a teacher. You're very used to being flexible, moving around and adapting to different things. And in some ways, I want to see, and maybe the cards will reflect this, part of this is also going from, because Sagittarius represents higher learning. So I feel like there's a little something going on where the teacher becomes the student and the student becomes the teacher. And there's something cooperative about that. So let's see. All right, here we go. Sagittarius, our first angel is Aurora. Our second is Shanti. The third is Layla. And the final is Daniel. Aurora is being joined by the Joy card. Shanti is being joined by the Water Fairy. Layla's being joined by the Baird. And Daniel's being joined by the Earth Fairy. Okay. So Aurora talks about flying high, about breaking boxes, about inspiring others, which is what Sagittarius does naturally. Sagittarius rules the angelic realm. It rules. When I think of it, the foreign aspect of Sagittarius, I rarely think about traveling from one country to another, although that's very true. I think of it about as breaking ground, the ultimate explorer, because you're constantly encountering new concepts, new places, new things that require you to pull your sight up and to see things from the philosopher and the wanderer and the beauty of diversity that then brings us back to commonality. Because I know this is going to sound kind of weird, but I feel like Sagittarius through this full moon is going to be again rising above the norm, rising above the herd mentality, rising above what is been acceptable, and in many ways celebrating what others may be fearing. And I say this because we're still going to, I touched on the idea that Uranus is going to be squaring Jupiter and then Saturn at least 3 times. I'd have to check if there's another Jupiter square, but there's going to be, when you think about in the 11th house, Aquarius, Uranus, the ruling planet, squaring the co-ruler, we're going to see events in the world that are going to change our structures again. I'm not necessarily thinking it's going to have to be pandemic related, but I think that the reason I'm saying this is because Sagittarius in many ways will celebrate these things, will not be walking in fear of them, but rather rejoicing in the liberation of these concepts. That's where I'm going. And then as a result of this whole idea of the revolution, there's a peace of and a tranquility that comes as we, as earthlings, as humans, start to trust our energetic bodies, our intuitive bodies, much more than we do our physical bodies. I absolutely believe that we are going to go from these ideas of you got to work hard in order to be successful to thinking about what is my being energy, what is my belief. And that's where the peace comes in, because we become more anchored in our belief, which then our actions are taken. Because in the angel's advice, Spirit is saying, Sagittarius, when you review your history, has it served you? Has it been what you wanted it to be? And in many ways, if it has, then capitalizing on that. It is not about exterminating our history. It's not, I don't even believe in releasing things. So many people talked, on a full moons, when you look at these astrology videos, they talk about releasing. I find that to be an absolute impossibility. If something's happened to me, it's left a scar, a stain, a mark, and you may not be able to see it, but with the right light, you will. So now it's about making it work for me. It's about reconciling the experience so that I turn it into a tool. And again, this is where I find myself with peace of mind, because I'm not trying to exterminate my history. I'm rewriting it. I'm making that history work for me. So now we have Daniel, the angel of marriage and partnership, and we have the Earth Fairy. I could talk about partnerships, but I don't think that this is about that. I think this is very much, again, when Daniel talks about bringing you a marriage partner, he talks about your history in intimacy, your history in love. And I think that what's happening is that I go to the foundational position. Sagittarius is much more, I just feel like there is this dynamic where you are riding the waves of change in more like a surfer. You're enjoying the ride versus bracing. And in doing so, you're more flexible with the changes, even if they seem scary. So now this is making you rewrite your history in a way that is making it more anchored into the physical, which is bringing more joy and more abundance to you because you've broken the box and then you've turned those pieces. It's like you broke the box, then you took all the pieces, and rather than trying to make it a box again, you made it a paved pathway. And you laid down those broken pieces, and then you put some sort of cement or some sort of mortar so that you don't fall on the pieces, but rather they become a solid road for that next experience, which is much more rooted in your joy. I'm so convinced of that. I'm not saying that joy is not going to be, it has to be claimed. It's not just going to be bestowed upon us. As if it were some sort of reward for holding our breath during 2020. It feels more like it is the natural claiming of us. We now claim it. We've gotten so sick of the other that we claim it in a more positive way or a more intentional way. That's the way I want to put it. All right, let's go to Scorpio. Oops. Get this show on the road. All right. Scorpio, rising, moon, sun, and stelliums. Okay. All right. Our first angel for Scorpio is Ariel. The second is Opal. The third is Chantal. And the final is Azure. All right, Ariel is being joined by the spider. Opal is being joined by the frog. Chantal is being joined by the disruption card. And the final, Azure is being joined by the bear. Ariel talks about having new spiritual experiences changing the way I view myself. And then I have the spider. Oftentimes I think of the spider as a relationship card. It kind of hit me that way when I first started using this deck because I could only imagine that when you touch a spider web, how it sticks to you. And so this became very much, and it became a realtor's card for me in some ways. So I want to offer this way. I feel like Scorpio, is ruled by Pluto. Pluto rules the unseen, and very much to me is connected to a spiritual dynamic, and it is through. It's a hard path to spirituality. I'll say that the eighth house with that death and rebirth idea. It's almost as if the more we cling to an antiquated idea, the more disruption it creates. So, Scorpio, as you allow yourself to evolve and you don't cling to antiquated ideas, I believe that you start to really feel the transformation of your ruling planet. Because in the opportunity and or the obstacle is the frog, which represents the cleaning of my house, my mental house, the releasing of emotional baggage, which I don't believe is necessarily a releasing, but this to me is more of a claiming of the childlike things that I want. Scorpio in some ways to me can be a very grown-up sign, because Pluto is such a transformational planet. There's very little childlike energy attached to Pluto. And I feel like this is an opportunity for Scorpio to actually step into a childlike innocence. And I want to say it this way because, the eighth house rules intimacy, kundalini sex, that seeing, through a very deep place. And I feel like that is what Scorpio wants to experience in their relationships. In the angel's advice is Chantal, the angel of romance, and the disruption card. Now, this is where I'm going to go. This may sound a little counterintuitive, but to me, I think this is more about you as a Scorpio getting the type of intimate love you really want versus what you think you can get. So the disruption comes from you only looking at love from one particular way. So let's say you have settled in some ways for what you think you can attain. This is good enough. I'm content. No need to go to those places where, I soar. I disagree. I think it is about soaring because Azure is saying that as you rewrite your history, your outcome will happen. What you want can happen. So this is where I'm going. Scorpio, this full moon in Cancer is asking you as a water sign to go to the deepest parts of your intuitive body, not to your ego body, but the parts of you that say, I want something deeper, something that feels a little unattainable in this world. We're afraid of being looked at too closely. We're afraid of being examined because we think of it like judgment. And I feel like for Scorpio, spiritual experiences are allowing you to think that, what? Rather than looking at judgment, I'm going to look at assessment. Rather than looking at disruption, I'm going to think of it as discernment, choosing what truly makes me happy. And in doing so, going back to the idea that Opal in this deck represents God taking care of our children. I think the children in this respect are the dreams that we have as adults, and the opportunity for those dreams to be cleaned up and to fall back in love with ourselves and our dreams through the disruption of things that haven't served us. And in doing so, rewriting the story, because Azure says your desired outcome will happen in the near future. And that having patience and faith is really an ability to focus in on that outcome versus focusing in on what's going on the way to that outcome. So that's what this full moon is about. It's about releasing what doesn't serve you and allowing yourself to focus in on what does serve you. And whether or not you've experienced it, I think it's more about Scorpio allowing them to say how much, being able to measure in some way where you are on your dream scale by how much you can actually put focus into something you haven't experienced. Recently, I've been talking about having, I've been going through some sort of detox within my physical body. And I have been very much noticing myself focused on the slightest things that happen, a twitch here, an itch there, all of a sudden I'll feel some things moving through my face, and I'm of a certain age where I start to feel vulnerable. And I started to ask myself questions about this dynamic and where my perspective was coming from. So in the feelings of unsuredness, fear started to creep in. What do I know? Do the years of malcontent start to slime where I am right now? Will I suddenly become happy and then everything fall apart? That's a very normal thing for the ego to say. The reason I'm saying all of this is because I didn't believe, but what I started to do was ask Spirit to help me to believe, to help me to anchor in even deeper into the fact that my dreams can still come true. Because as each year goes by, as every Christmas goes by and I spend it alone, I start to wonder more and more if there is viability to that. And then the other part of me kicks in and says, of course there is. And I go through this whole back and forth thing. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say, Scorpio, because that's what I think is going on for you. And at the end of the day, I think you're going to default onto the side of the deeper truth, which is in the unknowing. And in the unknowing, you will make it known because you will bring it into the physical. All right, let's go on to our Libras. Our first angel is Maya. Our second is Layla, again, coming out a lot. Azure is in our third position. Wow. Okay. I love when the angels all come out over and over again. And there's Archangel Raphael, the physical healer. All right, here we go. Whoop. Libra, rising moon, sun and stelliums. Maya is being joined by the wasp. Layla is being joined by the risk card. Azure is being joined by the truth. And Archangel Raphael is being joined by the joy card. Okay, so I'm a Libra sun, everybody, as y'all know. And I have a part of me that is a very little judgy girl. I'll say it. And I don't mean I'm judgy to the individual. I just have this idea about manners. I have this idea about common courtesy. And this is going to sound, I know I'm going to run off into a story, but I'm going to do it. Yesterday morning, day after Christmas, I'm walking my dog. I go to the market to get my morning drink, my morning hot coffee, my morning hot tea. And this guy pulls into the parking lot and just drives so fast, hits a puddle and splashes me. I got really upset. And as he turned and parked in his little oh boy, okay, I just pulled into the parking lot. I didn't do anything. He walks into the market and I say to him, do you realize what you did? And he's like, oh, I didn't see the puddle. He never apologized. He just stood there in line as if because he didn't see the puddle, he shouldn't be responsible. I was annoyed. Now I'm telling you this because there's Maya and the wasp. I was stingy. It pissed me off all day to the point where the lady at Starbucks gave me my coffee this morning for free because she felt sorry for me. Maya's the card of schooling and education. And there's the wasp. One of the things I've learned most about myself is that being pissed off messes with my physical body. This is the final position for Libra. Here's Archangel Raphael, the physical healer, and there's the joy card. What I realized when I contemplated this gentleman, I don't know his name even, how much time was I going to give him? I say this because my Libra rising sun, moon, and stelliums, how much time are you going to spend thinking about the injustice of this world? How much time are you going to spend being annoyed about what's unfair? Because there is something that you have to see. There's a risk card and there's Layla connecting with spirit. So what if the risk is that there is a bigger picture to this imbalance? What if there is a bigger, I walked out of that market thinking that man was a jerk. I walked out thinking he didn't care, that he was rude. I made a lot of assumptions. Maybe there was something there. I don't know, but because in the angel's advice, we have Azure saying that there is more on. Azure says your desired outcome will happen in the near future. Have patience and faith. And there's the truth card. I'm on Libra, rising sun, moon, and stelliums. What I'm trying to say for Libra is that you may be incensed, you may be pissed off, you may be so annoyed at the injustice of the world. I mean, I literally watched the mayor of Los Angeles go on the news the other day and cry, trying to get Los Angeles and everybody watching the news to just stay home. Just please stay home. And part of me was irritated by this whole dynamic. I'm so sick of 2020. Honestly, I'm so sick of feeling the heaviness of it. I'm so sick of everybody acting like a jerk. I have something to learn about this. As a Libra, my focus on what annoys me is actually interrupting my joy. So my risk is that there is a wisdom to this. My risk is that there is a deeper truth that is actually serving the world right now. And this is where the physical healing will come, because maybe everybody will get so sick of being in this energy that they will actually choose something different. And this will all coincide with the idea of Jupiter and Saturn moving into this idea of the 11th house Aquarius representing my hopes, my desires, and my dreams. And as I, as an individual, go towards those things, then I come back into the collective. Then I inadvertently give life to the idea that I teach others through my own being pissed off enough to risk it, to claim it, and then to live it. That's what I'm trying to say. Libra, there's a wisdom to your annoyance. There was a wisdom to the disharmony right now. All of the highest vibrations of Libra may be or maybe experienced as an exasperation of the lower dynamics of Libra. I get sick of being judgy sometimes. I get sick of being annoyed. And sometimes I can see myself choosing to be annoyed just because someone didn't follow the rules. Saturn is exalted in Libra. And I think that's kind of funny because I always think, that makes Libra kind of very unemotional in some ways. And I just think that I don't know, I lost my train of thought because someone just texted me. But I just want to offer, CJD, you heard the ding too. But I want to offer it this way because I don't want to be the judgy side of Libra. I want to be the harmonious side of Libra. And so what this is asking me is, or what this spread said for me is, how do I want to process my own viewpoints? How do I want to process what can I learn from being annoyed? I learned that it affects my physical body. I learned that it triggers my history. And so some random guy pulling into the market can literally send me on a train of injustice, imbalance, and get so annoyed by it, only to find myself coming back around to saying, well, look where I'm choosing to focus. And then claiming and owning my own perspective, which then brings me back to joy, which then takes me to Archangel Raphael presenting a physical healing. It's crazy. Spirituality is really not for the faint of heart. Okay, here we go. I don't know what the comment from James Abbey, give up the astrology. I don't know if that's personal to me or if it's just in general, but astrology is a science. It really is a science. All right, here we go. We're on to our Virgos, rising sun, moon, and stelliums. All right, our first angel is Ariel. The second is Shanti. The third is Archangel Michael. And the final is Akasha. Well, I want to say for Libra, we were sitting in a square with that Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter in the last bit of it, but it's been very challenging. Anything, Aries, all the cardinal signs were being nailed. And it took me a while to really think about it because I was only focused in on, and it's so human to only focus in on what is the point of inception versus the ripple effect. Because if you think about it, all those planets converging in Capricorn, we thought, oh, Capricorn, 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 ripple, ripple, ripple to the square, square, ripple to the opposition. All right. Virgo, Ariel's being joined by the Fire Fairy. Shanti's being joined by the Fear card. Archangel Michael's being joined by the Protection card. And Akasha is being joined by the King. Okay, new psychic and spiritual experiences are changing the way you view yourself and others. I very much feel that we are all sitting in the most exciting time in man's history because, and I say that because it is a time when our diversity, even though we may not realize it, we're seeing a lot of disruption about diversity, but we are opening up as we go into the age of Aquarius for that diversity to be embraced. And rather than to be vilified or to be ostracized for our diversity, I believe that as a humanity, we're going to be celebrating that. So now, for my Virgos, I feel like new experiences through spirit are starting to make it practical for you to trust the interactions you're having with your team. The coincidences that you're seeing are becoming more anchored in the 3D experience, because here's the fire fairy. The fire fairy for me represents sort of like the Queen of Wands in the tarot deck. It's Aryan in the inception of an idea, the conception of it, the inspiration of it. And I feel like spiritual experiences are inspiring Virgo into new dynamics within their physical experience, because Shanti, the angel of peace, and the fear card in the opportunity or the obstacle. So now this is starting to make me think that Virgos are seeking peace through looking at fear and trying to determine whether or not it's at fear appearing or false evidence appearing real, or is there something truly to fear? And I think this is where the real rubber meets the road, because Archangel Michael is saying you now have the courage to know you're being protected. That's where we go back to, wow, these spiritual experiences really are, sometimes disruption is a good thing. Sometimes what I didn't realize seemed a little scary actually opened a door I otherwise would not have been able to walk through. Because in the final position is Akasha, the spiritual teacher. And then here is the king. The king is really representing karma or justice, balance in a karmic way. And the karma is not about you did bad and so you're going to get bad happening to you. It's more about, I feel like maybe it's better to say things pertaining to spiritual law. That you're starting to realize that spiritual law is one that is kind and benevolent and loving, and it seeks balance naturally. There is nothing that we need to repent for, but rather to use those lower vibrations as a measuring stick for our focus, as an inspiration for our intention. Thank you, God and the angels, for showing me how this challenging experience has the ability to empower me, through the process of reconciliation. Reconciliation being defined as understanding how the dark helped create a brighter light. And in doing so, I am now following the spiritual laws of love. That's where I'm going. Now I'm on to our Leos. Leo rising, moon, sun, and stelliums. I was raised with the idea that God was all loving, that God was this energy that understood that humans are inherently flawed. And rather than judging and pointing at us and saying, you didn't do it right, God says you did it the best you knew how to do in that moment. And for that, my child, I love and I celebrate you. So as you give life to the idea that your sins, your mistakes are actually the things that provide for your enlightenment, I celebrate you. Amber Winter, welcome to our tribe. Yes, I do individual private readings. You can find me on Lotta's channel or Lotta's website under the readers menu. My name is Teri Hunter. Okay, here we go. On to our Leos, rising, moon, sun, and stelliums. And let me just say this about Leo, because I think I've been saying this for the last few months, and I really want to have this hit home. Leo is ruled by the sun. The sun rules the zodiac. The sun rules our solar system. And the sun governs romance, personal pleasure, creativity, children, fifth house things. I believe this is all part of this, I want to call it a coagulation, where all the things come together to make sense. Because as we follow our personal pleasures, our desires, our hopes, and our dreams, we give life to others. So Leo, rock on. Leo, our first angel is Serena, the angel of abundance. Our second is Isabella, the angel that's timing is right. Bridget is going to ask us to look at where endeavoring, and Oceana is asking us to take truth on our deepest parts of our heart. All right. Serena is being joined by the restriction card. Isabella is being joined by the letting go card. Bridget's being joined by the partnership card. And Oceana is being joined by the butterfly. Okay, so when I look at Serena, it talks about material abundance, absolutely material abundance. But for me, what I'm feeling is very much this full moon. We have a full moon in Cancer. Cancer represents home and hearth. And I want to offer it this way because home is not a place. Home is a feeling. Home is a vibration of. And I actually, when I said that, I almost felt like home was really the angelic realm, where we are most celebrated as the truth of who we are instead of the illusion of what we see in the human body. Because I feel like for my Leos, the restriction is not on your abundance, but rather on your serenity, on your... I feel like when I go to this, I look at your self-expression, Leo, that part of your way of being, the part of the truth of Leo is social. It's social, it's fun, it's hobbies and playtime and sporting events and concerts and all the things that have been restricted this last year. And so now, on some level, finding that serenity is coming from a different place. And that serenity, the playtime, this is our opportunity and our obstacle. There's the letting go card, and here's Isabella saying, yes, the timing is right. It seems so counterintuitive. What am I letting go? Letting go, I think, is, I kind of want to go back to that idea of doing things my own way, of this is going to sound kind of crazy to me, but I feel like for my Leos right now, there is a dynamic of finding a truth and a love of self that goes deeper than what you have known in this lifetime. Sort of like this. Let's say that you've been a very social Leo and you are used to going out and having parties and throwing parties, and then 2020 threw a big kibosh on all that, threw you into a place of feeling totally out of your realm. Now I feel like this is about finding a new way of implementing those same dynamics, the same joys, the same personal pleasures. Because in the angel's advice is Bridget saying to look deeper, and there's the partnership card. And I don't think this is about partnerships outside of yourself. I think this is more about rebuilding your home. The letting go card is a 44. That 44 is about, to me, it's the master builder number. And this is now about building. Okay, let me go back for a second. Leo, I'm sorry if I seem a little choppy today. I want to say it this way. I feel like Leo has been criticized for being too much of themselves sometimes. Sometimes you're too charming. You're too happy in times when we're supposed to be sad and we're supposed to be more serious. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a Leo energy that doesn't want to be restricted anymore, doesn't want to have to, wear a mask anymore. And what I'm trying to say that is, I think that there is a part of the world, a part of the human experience that is transforming to be more fifth house oriented, more pleasure oriented, and not in a way that is decadent and disruptive, but rather a way that sets a new norm so that we start to endeavor experiences that are truer to ourselves. So what I think is, this is about looking deeper into what those things really are for you, because the timing is right to do them. And now it's time to come into partnership with what you think is what you have wanted and what you really want. It's almost as if there is some sort of evolution for Leo where you thought you wanted one thing and you're coming out of a situation where you're realizing that yes, you do want that thing, but then you want it at a much deeper level or a much more I want to use the word savory. I want to use the word rich. I want to use the word robust, because in the final position for Leo is Oceana saying to take action on your deep truth. And we've got Oceana coming up through the water. What does the moon govern? The waters, our emotions. And here's the butterfly coming out of the cocoon, representing the beauty. So I think that not only has this period of time been restrictive so that you could hone in on a deeper truth of what you love and what you want to experience, but also to represent for others, and not to represent in a way that is off-putting to others, but encompassing and bringing them in. So that's where I'm going for my Leos. I also want to say that there is, I believe, abundance to be revealed after this restriction. There is a sense of more I can't quite describe it. It almost feels like in the back, we've been living a virtual experience, and now we're going to actually live an experience we can put our hands and our feet on. That was not a garbage truck. It was something else. The garbage truck's much louder. But again, I live in a very weird area. Okay, so somebody asked about, is Capricorn been done? Deanie, I go backwards. I start at Pisces and I work my way towards Aries. I am headed onto Cancer right now. So yes, Capricorn has been done. Aquarius has been done. Yeah, it sounded like a forklift. Exactly. Might have been a forklift. Okay, here we go. On to our Cancers. This is your moon. And I want to put it this way because, being ruled or ruling home and hearth and family, I feel like this is about you, Cancer. This is about you choosing and thinking about, it's a full moon. The moon is shining the brightest it shines. It's illuminating. And I think in this way, it's illuminating for you what is most true to you, so that you can then bring that into the home, integrate it into what is the foundation of your experience. And in doing so, opening up more possibilities for those around you. Okay. So while I'm shuffling for Cancer, I just going to quickly address Ruth. Ruth, I think retrograde planets in a chart, maybe you have an opportunity to look at wherever that planet is and whatever sign it's retrograding in is an opportunity to review, to reflect, to rest, to rejuvenate, and apply those dynamics to that planet. I just suddenly realized that, and I know this may sound totally amateurish, but the sun never retrogrades, which is an interesting thing. So the core of who we are never retrogrades. The moon never retrogrades. These are two of the most personal things in our solar system. The man and the woman, action and reception, they never retrograde. All the dynamics around us do. I'd look at that. That was a really great question, Ruth. Spawned a lot of thought for me. Thank you. All right, Capricorn. Cancer. Where am I going? Starting over again. Cancer, rising sun, moon, and stelliums. Exactly, Amy Brown. Turn the energy inward, reflective. Cancer, our first angel for you is Merlina. The second is Opal. The third is Archangel Michael, and the final is Akasha. Merlina is being joined by the Focus card. Opal is being joined by the Deer. Archangel Michael is being joined by the Wasp. And Akasha is being joined by the Bee. This is very interesting to me when I look at this because it feels very much, when I look at this, the first thing I felt was that Cancer is not giving themselves enough credit right now. And I don't mean credit for manifesting their dreams. I mean credit for their focus, for what's going on. So much is out of our control in some ways. So many of the things going on in 2020 had to do with Capricorn dynamics, authority, government, organizations. And so Merlina represents confusion. And there's the focus card. And I feel like this isn't necessarily confusion in your focus, but almost like fragmented focus. It's as if there have been so many things to be on alert for that you've been kind of going from one little mini fire to another little mini fire, trying to put out the fires and trying to keep everybody safe and sound. I say that because Opal is the card of children, which is what you represent, but I want to take it to a deeper place. I want to almost take it to Mother Earth. Mother Earth versus Father Sun, Mother Earth. I'm sorry, the moon. Not Mother Earth. I'm talking about the moon right now, representing the mother, although there is Mother Earth, because I feel like Opal talks about God being in charge of our children, taking care of us. And so much of this is out of your physical control. So as you are gentle and diplomatic with yourself and your concerns about your focus, for some reason, there seems to be an energy for Cancer that almost feels as if you're taking on too much responsibility for the events around you. It's almost like you want to take everybody's pain and carry their pain for them. And I want to say that's not humanly possible, because in the angel's advice is the Wasp and Archangel Michael. And this makes me feel like you're pissed off at the idea that this hasn't shifted, that the world is still we're so vulnerable to so many things, to not only this virus that's creeping around, its 2.0 version and everything related around it. Because whether you realize it or not, Cancer, Akasha, the spiritual teacher, is here, and here is the Bee card. And the Bee card for me is really about my being energy. And this is where I feel like the rubber meets the road for Cancer. This is where you may think you're confused and indecisive about events around you, but I believe you will somehow find clarity through the fog. And this might be because the outside world events are so overwhelming that it actually kicks you into what this full moon in Cancer means. It means I need to go to the deeper truth of my heart, my intuition, what's inside of me versus what is outside of me. And in doing so, I have so much more power over how I perceive and how I experience these situations. When I was doing a reading the other day and looking at Merlina, and if you look very closely at the card, even though it talks about needing research, there's two angels above her. And Merlina is got a wizard's hat on. There's magic to be had. And then there's the two dolphins. So this is the water element. I feel like truly this is talking about going deeper into your truth, deeper into what is not at all involving out here. I hope that is making sense, because our feelings, love is not logical, emotions are not logical. They can be, you can try to be logical about them, but they are not in nature logical. So that's where I'm going. All right. So overall, for Cancer, the thing I think is most powerful for this week and for this full moon, the last week of 2020, is for you to start to realize that your focus, whether you know it or not, has been more aligned. And your physical power may have been thwarted. Your physical ability to protect those that you love or those that you call part of your family is not as powerful as your emotional body. And as you implement that that connection to spirit, the prayer work, the energy work that you do, that keeps things in alignment. And that's where not only do you become a teacher, but you learn from your own being energy. Hope that makes sense. Pardonnez-moi. Okay, going on to our Geminis. Bye, Amy. Thanks for coming. Be safe. Have a nice new year. We'll see you in the new year. Keegan, I do think of myself as a therapist. I'm an angel therapy practitioner. So what I do is I work with the angelic realm to help us see, realize, and implement universal laws so that we can break down the illusions and stand in the truth of our light. All right, here we go. For our Geminis, our first angel is Oceana. The second is Shanti. The third is Francesca, and the final is Opal. It seems every week somehow we get these kind of, the same angels seem to come up over and over again. And I think that there are truly universal themes within each one of these individualities. All right, here we go. Where is Stephen today? I don't know. The full moon, Jeanette, is actually the 29th or the 30th, depending where you are in the world. 29th if you're in the west, 30th if you're in the light. In the light, if you're in the east. Sorry, I half read. My attention is always so diverted. I apologize. All right, Oceana is being joined by the Focus card. Shanti is being joined by the Queen. Francesca's being joined by the Truth card, and Opal's being joined by the Letting Go card. Oceana talks about being in touch with your truth. Keegan, it might be the 30th where you are in the world. I believe it's the 29th here in the United States. Okay, Gemini. This full moon is in Cancer. It's an emotional sign. It's a water sign. It's a sign that is maternal. It is feminine in nature to me, the moon representing the feminine. So for me, I believe that this is really about focusing in not on you're a Gemini, you're an air sign. You're going to want to use your brain to figure things out. And I think that the focus has to be on your emotions this week. I think this is not just about your emotions, but in some ways being able to step back from your emotions and to observe, because the Focus card is a 33, which is the teacher number for me. It's the master number of learning. So this is to me about stepping back and really observing where your emotions are taking you. And when your emotions are taking you down a road that starts to tell yourself a story that may or may not be true. So Shanti, the angel of peace, and the Queen card, to me, is asking, Gemini, what is your ability to receive, Gemini? Because when you go back to what Oceana and the Focus card, it may be that you keep getting pulled back into what has happened in your world versus what you want to happen. This is very much representing your emotional body, not your physical body. Meaning not, and I'm not talking about physical health, I'm talking about what you've experienced in the physical world. So let's just say for, I'm trying to think of I always use love or career. So I was trying to think of a different example, but I'm just going to use love anyway. So your emotional body has said, I have not experienced love. All my friends are getting married. All my friends are having babies, and I'm not. And it's not happening. And that's the truth. That's the truth. Because Gemini will do that. It'll go back. It'll say, that's the truth. And Spirit is saying, go back to what it is your emotional body wants. What is the truth? The truth is that I know I'm going to be in a relationship with that person. And my willingness to receive has been disrupting my peace. I really believe that, because in the angel's advice is Francesca saying, what are you focusing in on? Because negativity will block your progress. And there's the truth card. Sometimes I think as humans, we think if we dare the universe in a way like, prove to me that I'm wrong, prove to me that my life will get better, but yet my focus is still on that it sucks. It doesn't work that way. We must focus in, I don't want to say must, but in order to be truly effectual, being able to connect with what we want to experience as the seedling, not the manifestation, but the beginning, the impetus, the starting point. That is how we start to get the energetic ball rolling, because opal represents our children, but also represents God being in charge of taking care of things. So I want to say it this way. I think that for my Geminis, this full moon in Cancer is asking you to go to your emotional body, to a place that is not logical, to a place that lacks I want to almost say structure, because emotions can change. We can see something and experience something and feel something 1 minute and then change into another feeling. So as you go to this letting go, which is really moving myself from fear and knowing that God is in charge of what I'm experiencing, because he is listening to my focus, or she, the energy, the all being and the all knowing. Gemini is I think Gemini represents the teacher, represents the reader, the writer, the speaker. And now I think what this spread is saying, are you teaching? Are you writing the story you want? Are you reading the story you want? Are you speaking of the story you want? Or are you speaking of the story you've already had? Because if you're daring the universe to show you a new story, you're still going to get the same old story, because your focus is inadvertently on that old story. Need to move into the new story. And if you're struggling with the new story, thanks, Spirit, for helping you to see the truth. I've had these weird, I don't even know what kind of health issues I might be having, because I just feel weird things happening in my body. And I'm not going to go to a physical doctor, because it's just not how I roll. So I started to really connect with Spirit. And while I saw and experienced something specific, I gave life to a different idea, and then allowed myself to continue to be inspired, and then to watch myself go back and forth, back and forth. And as I went back and forth between what do I trust and believe, and what am I still unsure of, but was what I was unsure of that I needed to really trust and believe. I hope that made sense, because it's time to rewrite the story. But you got to tell a new story to rewrite it. All right, here we go. Taurus, rising, sun, moon, or stelliums. Woo! My glasses are falling off my face. I'm throwing the cards down. Well, thank you so much, Somali, but I'm not Lada. I hope that you're talking about me. Lada is hot, though. She really is. And she's about 20 years younger than I am. Okay, here we go. My name is Teri Hunter, and I'm one of the contributors on Lada's channel. All right, here we go. Taurus, our first angel is Isaiah. The second is Ariel. The third is Athena. And the final is Archangel Gabriel. You guys are very sweet. I'll take it. Isaiah is being joined by the Baird. Ariel is being joined by the Wind Fairy. Athena's being joined by the Earth Fairy. And Archangel Gabriel is being joined by the Novice. So Uranus is traveling through Taurus for another few years or so. And Uranus is ruling Aquarius. We're gonna be feeling a lot of Aquarian energy, you guys, for a while moving forward, not just because of Jupiter and Saturn, but I believe it's the way, we've been hearing about the age of Aquarius for as long as I can remember. So I want to offer this for my Tauruses, because sometimes it's hard. I'm a Taurus moon. So I know sometimes it's hard for Taurus to pivot and just turn on a dime. And Isaiah is asking you to give birth to new ideas and new situations, and to know that you're being protected. And there's the Baird. And the bear represents the enchantment of storytelling, represents history, it represents music and poetry. And I really feel like right now I'm focusing in on the idea of the bear dancing, the bear having sort of this frivolous feeling to it in some ways, almost as if he's walking with a bubble on his head through challenges, and yet he's made them small. And so he's giving himself new opportunities to, if you look very closely at the bear, look in his bag, there's a knight and there's a king. And then there's the staff. He's not holding on to them. It's almost as if authority is a little bit different for him these days. And I'm not quite sure if he's going to light that bag on fire because he's really wanting to sing a new song. And then here's Isaiah. So I really believe that for Taurus, you're about to be liberated as you start to implement the ideas of what Uranus has to offer you, because Uranus is shocking. It's unexpected. It is in some ways revolutionary. And when we think about the idea of being, liberated from our challenges, we don't usually think about the spiritual journey that we take to be liberated, because what's going to take is a taming of your mind. That's what it's going to take, because for some reason, Taurus is always going to defer back to where there's a hole, where there is a vulnerable spot. And in order for you to neutralize that, you're going to have to go back to psychic and spiritual experiences, changing the way you view yourself in the world. Last couple of weeks, I talked about the potential of my apartment building being purchased. I've been here 17 years. I work out of my home. It sent me into a real train of vulnerability. But what I had to do was I had to fight through that vulnerability to find the truth of how I found this apartment. And it was through spirit leading me here. It was through the idea of me in some ways turning over the how and giving spirit the parameters of how it feels once I got where I wanted to go. Because for Taurus, rising sun, moon, and stelliums, Athena in the angel's advice is asking you to lovingly assert yourself towards a new foundation. Here is the earth fairy. This is really about musing on what it is you want to experience, what you want to feel, even if you haven't, because it's time for a new beginning. There is the novice, and there is Archangel Gabriel. Archangel Gabriel is talking about turning your insecurities over to her, turning over your, it's about communications. It represents Gemini for me very much. And it also is about giving life to new. It's almost like I want to say, you know what, Spirit, in the new version of my life, I wake up every day at 9 a.m. instead of 6 a.m. because I want to sleep in. It's really about starting to tell them, what does the new version of your life look like? Because not only will they be willing to usher it in, it's going to take Taurus some practice to allow that ushering in, because even if you want something new, you're still used to the old. And if we think about Taurus representing the second house of money, the second house also of security or insecurity. So as you venture out into this new dynamic that's being offered to you, your mind will continue to go to the old dynamic, and you're going to have to allow for new experiences to come in to anchor in this new platform. And the platform is one that you have co-created with spirit, as you have used the Baird's enchantment of storytelling. The storytelling, this is what it feels like. Before I started working for myself, I used to work for this chiropractor, and there was a 2-hour break in the middle of the day, which for me is it was just a huge waste of time. And it used to make me so annoyed. My Aries is so strong. So I would drive home, which is like 20 minutes home, 20 minutes back with no traffic, to walk the dog. And I'd come get Lucky and take him out for a pee. And I didn't even know I was doing this. I'd be like, I'm not going to have to make this drive anymore. I'm so sick of making this drive. Soon, Lucky, I'm going to get to walk you whenever I want to. And I started telling Lucky the story of what it was going to be like. Little did I know, within 6 months, I was starting to live that story. And it was hugely scary because I didn't have a bunch of security to sit on. I had my attitude was the most secure thing I had to offer. And I wasn't even sure of that. So I had to really stay connected to my guides. I had to stay connected. This is my opportunity and or my obstacle, and to ask them to help tame the part of my mind that starts to go off the rails and tell a scary story. And here I am, 7 years later, living the best part of my life ever. And I still have moments of malcontent. Don't get me wrong. And then I think, how could I feel malcontent after I've gotten so far? But that's part of the human experience. Whenever you've conquered one dream, we just almost immediately want to go on to the next dream. The next, I got it here. I'm here. Okay. On to our final sign, Aries, rising, moon, sun, and stelliums. I think I look okay for 61. I'll take it. I certainly, not going to do anything else about, not going to shoot my face up with anything, because I don't like any pain at all. I'm telling you. Okay. Okay, here we go. Final sign, Aries, rising, sun, moon, and stelliums. I don't even know what I was saying. All right, here we go. You guys hearing my texts go off? I tried to put my phone on. Oh, your sun and Chiron, are they conjunct? Is that what's going on? I think that's an opportunity, MJ, BM, to actually reconcile the wound Chiron represents by allowing your sun to shine upon it. All right, here we go. Aries, our first angel is Isabella. The second is Crystal. The third is Archangel Gabriel. And the final is Ariel. Ariel's come up a lot. I'm on the final sign, Aries. I start at Pisces and work my way towards Aries. So thank you so much, everybody. I kind of do things a little backwards. I have Uranus in my 5th house of Leo. I like to change it up, do things different. Woo! All right. Isabella is being joined by the ego. Rock on. Crystal's being joined by the partnership card. Archangel Gabriel's being joined by the communications card, and Ariel's being joined by the owl. Okay, this is what I'm going to say about the human ego. I absolutely believe that our empowerment, our achievement, our exhilaration lies in the ego. Yes, the ego is the one that wants to tell us we're not enough. Yes, the ego will ask us if indeed we think we have the courage. But I want to offer this for my Aries, my truth seekers, my spiritual warriors. Isabella is saying the timing is right to work in coordination with your ego. I think of, of all the signs, I think of Aries and Leo both being fire signs as in some ways being considered slightly arrogant, slightly full of themselves, a little too much sometimes. And I feel like there is a greater wisdom to that definition than meets the eyes. And I feel like this is really a time for Aries to start to work in coordination with their ego. Before I do any readings, before I start the show, before I tape any videos, I thank God and the angels for having my ego step aside so that spirit may step through. But I honor my ego and I thank her for being brave enough to put herself in a platform. You guys may not realize this, but all the contributors on Lotta's site put themselves on a platform where almost 250,000 people can sit and judge them and assess their value and then make their opinions known. And that takes bravery. So where I'm going with this is the ego will often tell you, you're not good enough. But Aries, this is where your ego starts to come into alignment, because here is the partnership card and Crystal saying to have faith and hope. There's more on the horizon that you can't see. And what I think that means is that It's time to stop villainizing the ego. It's time to stop villainizing any part of the human experience and to start to seek out the tool that negative, challenging experience has to offer us. Because in the angel's advice, we have the communications card and we have Archangel Gabriel. Archangel Gabriel is talking about communications, and there's the communications card. What kind of partnership are you coming into? Because God, source energy, in their infinite wisdom, created the id, the ego, and the higher self as part of the human experience for a reason. And man came in and said, oh, we don't need that ego. That's not a good thing. You don't need that appendix. We can cut that out. You don't need to live with that. We can take out your gallbladder. You don't need that to live. But without your gallbladder, you can't digest fats. Without your ego, you cannot feel achievement. So it's time to connect, Aries. Ariel says, new psychic and spiritual experiences are changing the way you view yourself and others. And here's the owl, wisdom and deception. Yes, the timing is right to see the wisdom and the deception of what your ego has to offer you and to differentiate between the two. When the ego is saying you're not enough, what is the ego really saying? It's saying you haven't paid enough attention to me. And I'm mad at you right now because I'm part of your earthly experience and I want to be acknowledged. So I acknowledge you now, my ego. And then I ask you to step aside so that I may let spirit come through and have us both experience power beyond our own ability to conceive, hence crystal. So when you start to contemplate your ego moving forward in 2021, and you contemplate its viability to be a spiritual being, maybe it is one of the greatest parts of our spiritual being, because it is in that vibration that we have the opportunity to discern our truth. And as we give life to our truth being viable to no one else but ourselves, then we give life to others and their truth. And to me, that is the age of Aquarius. So here we have a Cancerian moon offering us opportunities to look into our deeper emotional truth, our deeper intuitive bodies, our oversoul. Yes, the crows. It's quite a busy morning here in Laguna Beach, California. It's overcast and there's a lot of wildlife. I had a pod of dolphins this morning during my meditation, and usually I see about 3. There was probably about 6 or 8 of them, and they were all swimming very closely together. So to me, again, I feel here I am contemplating a Cancerian full moon, where the moon is illuminating on the ocean its brightest light. And it's offering me depths of emotions that I don't even know yet, because I can't get that deep. So now it's about my willingness to be there. All right. So that's it for this week. I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank you for all the beautiful thumbs up you gave me and for participating and being part of the ascension. And when I say ascension, I don't really mean rising from a lower place to a higher place, but more the ascension of all of us allowing ourselves to be expressive in our ways that are unique and authentic to us. So sending lots of love and light to you all. Have a wonderful week. Enjoy your New Year holiday. I would say be safe, but I believe your vibration will keep you safe. So thank you for that, and I'll see you in the new year. We'll see what happens. I'm kind of excited. I also feel like I'm watching a bit of a suspense thriller. All right, everybody. Happy, merry, merry, ho, ho, ho. I love you all more than life. Peace out. See you next week.